and welcome to Sue Where Why What, and more specifically my video all about walking the Camino de Santiago. I did it a couple of weeks ago. We're now in May, but it's such a personal experience and a real journey, a transformative one at that, that I felt it was more important for me personally to experience all the joys of walking the Camino rather than having the distraction of talking to you and making a video. So I've done a little bit of filming along the route, but I've also come back to our old stomping ground, which is the Ridgeway in the Chiltern Hills in England, where I did all my training for the Camino, and that's where I'm going to bring you all my narrative about the do's and don'ts and what to expect when you're hiking the Camino for yourself. So welcome kind of to the Camino de Santiago, but certainly welcome to Sue Where Why What, where I want to share my journey, so hopefully it will help you to get ready for yours. The Camino de Santiago is a network of ancient pilgrimage routes which go through Europe to finish at the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. It's also called St James's Way because everyone walks there on their pilgrimage to see the shrine of St James in the cathedral. But you don't have to be religious to take it on. People do it, like me, for more cultural or self-development journeys. You might want to do it as a physical challenge, you might want to do it as a spiritual challenge or a religious endeavour. Everybody is welcome on the Camino. The routes go across France, across Spain, from England. I chose to take the Camino Portuguese, which starts basically in Lisbon, and there are a couple of routes that go either centrally through Portugal or the coastal route. I only had a week available, so I started in Vigo, which marks the 100 kilometres mark from Santiago de Compostela. We only had a week to complete our Camino, so the most, or the least rather, that you can do to get your certificate or Compostela stamped at the end is 100 kilometres. So we chose to start from Vigo, which is literally across the border from Portugal into Spain, and at the 100 kilometres mark. So that took us a week to hike that 100 kilometres. If you're choosing to cycle it or go on horseback, you need to make sure that you do 200 kilometres. If you'd like to take on the Camino de Santiago, in particular if you're a woman travelling alone, and especially if you're a woman over 50, then definitely sign up to my newsletter below. I send a weekly email with tips, tricks, inspiration, and ideas about how you can travel alone and have the kind of transformative experiences that I've had over the last 10 years. In addition, if you want some more specialised and specific one-to-one help, then again sign up to the newsletter below and we can organise a 15-minute discovery call to see if you'd like to take part in some one-to-one travel coaching with me. I'm a certified travel coach and have over 15 years of coaching experience in the corporate world, and I would love to help you find your next adventure. So sign up on the link below and I look forward to connecting with you and hopefully sharing the journey further. Let's talk training. I've done a lot of walks, big walks on my travels in the past. I've hiked Mount Kilimanjaro to celebrate turning 50. I have hiked the Inca Trail to jaw-dropping Machu Picchu. And I've also done a much lesser known 3-day walk on my own in Ecuador of the Kilauea Loop. I consider myself as reasonably fit, and for all of those walks I didn't necessarily do a lot of training. But for the Camino, I did that with my partner, and he came up with a fantastic, it turned out, training plan. We came on this same route 3 times a week over the course of 4 weeks before we went on to hike the Camino. Each week we did 3 walks that were all identical at the same distance. So week 1 was 7.5k, week 2 was 10k, week 3 15, and week 4 just over 20. What this did is it gave us A, the opportunity to see how fitness was improving, B, test all the kit that we were going to take with us to make sure that the boots were comfortable, and I went there and back and all the way without any blisters, thankfully. But even down to poles, which I'd never used before, and the backpack. So that was fantastic. But also, it so improved my fitness. I think I would have really struggled with some of the longer walks. And it meant that when we got to the final day, which was also our longest walk of 28 kilometers, I knew I could do it because I'd done it all. What it also gave the chance to do is we did our training end of March through April, which in the UK is spring. I live near these beautiful woods, and it gave the opportunity to really watch spring springing. So we saw lambs, newly born, went from 1 to well over like 30 newborn lambs. We were counting them each time, and I did an update on Instagram, #lambcam. And also the bluebells. So the woods here went from completely bare to this beautiful green to a sea of bluey purple bluebells underfoot, which was absolutely stunning. So today's the first day I've come back post Camino, and it all looks different again. So that was good. What it also gave us a chance to do, or for me personally, is that when we were tired and getting to the end of a day, but knew I had 5 kilometers to walk still, say, I had a gauge on how far that was. So for me, that was less than to the first gate and back, and it made life so much easier. So if you do get a chance to do the walk, even if you have a relative level of fitness, I would advise to do something similar. If you don't have a level of fitness, 100% definitely do it. Walking is way more challenging than you think, and for something like the Camino, it takes stamina, and particularly pulling on the same boots every morning at 8 o'clock, and especially on the Camino, pulling your boots on every morning when you can barely get them off the night before. Just having the stamina to be able to do that, and the mental resilience, the training does really help. So I would advise you to do something similar. So let's talk about accommodation and where to stay on the Camino de Santiago. Traditionally, and specifically for pilgrims, there are places along the route, I think in monasteries and churches, and there's the municipal albergues. They are very cheap to stay. As I understand it, you get a bunk bed, and that's pretty much it. But you can pay less than 10 euros a night, which if you're walking for months, which some people do, is absolutely phenomenal. So you can stay in the albergues. For a little bit more money, you can stay in the private albergues. Accommodation, as I understand it, is very similar in terms of the same kind of level as in bunk bed. You probably get a few more luxuries. And the good thing about the private ones in comparison to the municipal ones is that you can book them beforehand. So you don't have to be the first one there which you do need to do in the municipal. And you don't have to go hunting for accommodation when you get somewhere, you know exactly where you're staying, which, trust me, when you've been walking 25 kilometres, it's nice to know exactly where you're going and where you're going to get a bed. The other advantage of using the private alberges is that because you can book them beforehand, you can always also use the luggage transfer service. So I will put a link to Pack Mochila, which is associated with the postal service in Spain, and we used them and they were fantastic to transport our bags from one place to the next, which meant all we needed to carry was what we wanted for the day. There's also all sorts of other options for accommodation, from, depending where you're staying, luxury hotels, maybe a few less slightly luxury, or just very basic rooms. So because I went with my partner, we wanted double bed, our own space, an ensuite bathroom. And so we were paying, I think we budgeted about 50 to 60 pounds or euros per night. Like I say, we were only on the Camino for a week. And they were fantastic. And it also meant that we could get our luggage transferred, and I think it only cost something like £7 for a bag to be taken from one place to the next place to the next place over 5 nights, which was a phenomenal service and worked really well. I'll put links down below for all of the places that we stayed between Vigo and Santiago de Compostela, so that you can use those links to book for yourself. Next question, how far do you walk each day? That will depend on how far you want to walk each day. We met a guy on the trail that was walking, on the final day, 47 kilometres, which is way further, probably twice as far as we were doing most days. For me, around the 20 kilometre mark was kind of the good gauge. So I think the shortest walk we did was about 18 kilometres. The longest was 28 kilometres. This gave us the opportunity to have a relaxed start of the day after we put our bag out to be picked up for 8 o'clock in the morning. A little bit of breakfast before we hit the road. A nice relaxed stop for lunch, which in my head initially on day one, I just wanted to get the walking done. But after that, recognised the huge benefit of stopping and resting your legs for an hour, as well as getting good sustenance, because you're walking everything you eat off. So that worked really well. And then ideally a coffee or an ice cream or something later on in the day too. For most places we would aim to get to our accommodation for about 4 o'clock. The latest we got anywhere was, I think, our first night for 5:30, which was too late because that's less downtime in the evening, less chilling out time in the evening, because you've still got to go and find some food for dinner. And so ideally you want to aim to finish the day around 3:30 to 4 o'clock, which gives you enough rest after you get back to get yourself sorted, get showered, get changed, freshen up, and enjoy a very quiet evening of just eating and then going to bed. Another note about where to stay is that anywhere you stay will probably add. We found that each time we were adding maybe 3 kilometres to what they said we would be walking per day. Once you've got to your accommodation, got back on the trail, bear that in mind. In addition, we chose that we didn't want to stay A, too far away from the trail itself, and B, too far from any restaurants for the evening. And both of those principles served us really well. So in booking.com, what I found, which I've never found before, is an opportunity to look at the reviews and then search on a word. So I searched on Camino, and that gave us all of the information from previous people who'd stayed there as to where that place was in comparison to the trail, which was super useful. And I just wanted to share with you, coming up to the best section of this walk for bluebells. I don't know if they're going to come out so well on video, but I'll give it a go. Oh, rabbit! While we're on the subject of accommodation, the other thing is, it goes without saying, the earlier that you book, the more choice that you'll have for whatever budget you want to use for the walk. But when you do book, I would also advise to book in your bags if you want them transferred at the same time. Reason being, not everywhere, for an apartment block particularly, are listed where you can get the pickups from. So I noted this with one of the places that I'd originally booked. Everywhere had cancellation up to a couple of days before. Everywhere that I booked, the links are below. But then one of them wasn't on the list for the luggage service, which was fine. I found another one, I booked that, I cancelled the first one and booked in my luggage without a problem. So just bear that in mind as another element when you're looking at best places to stay. Walking the Camino de Santiago is something that you might want to put on your bucket list. I made one way back when as an opportunity to bring me back to life after I tragically lost my husband back in 2014. And therefore I call it my life list. Things to do to bring me back to life rather than things to do before you die, which seemed too close to home at the time. If you're doing the Camino de Santiago for a reason like that, or looking for other things and inspiration to do, then check out my link below as well, which has 201 inspirational travel bucket list ideas. Check the link below. Walking the Camino de Santiago is so much more than the practicalities of how you go about doing the walk. Hence why I wasn't talking to you while I was actually on the Camino. There are all sorts of reasons why you might do it. And as a result, it's a very personal journey. But I thought I'd take this opportunity to share with you some of the thoughts and contemplations that I was having while I was on my Camino journey. One of the unique things about the Camino de Santiago is that everyone doing it is all walking in one direction. So it doesn't matter where you've started from. Some people walk for hundreds of kilometers and for months. We walked for a week for 100 kilometers. Everybody starts from a different destination, but everybody is following the same path and walking to the same place. And that makes things a bit special because it's something that people do as a pilgrimage, either on a spiritual journey, for religious reasons, for personal self-development reasons, physical challenge. There are all sorts of reasons why you might be there. It may be to honour a loved one, it may be to remember someone, it might be to take some time out, contemplate your life, where you might want it to go now. Everybody has different reasons and everybody has different baggage that they're bringing with them. And I don't mean the physical baggage. It might be physical ailments, aches and pains. It might be emotional trauma. It could be all sorts of things. Everybody is walking the same path but on their very own individual journey. And although thousands of people do the walk, whichever route they choose to take every year, everybody has their own individual reasons for being there. And that's kind of why I chose not to film while I was on the path, because I felt it was almost a little bit intrusive, and it was kind of intrusive for me too. So if any of those ring a bell, then 100% do your part of the Camino, whatever that looks like. You don't even have to end it in Santiago. You can keep coming back and doing chunks. Yeah, it was a pretty special experience for that element alone. If you'd like to take on the Camino de Santiago as part of your self-development journey, then absolutely, and particularly if you're a woman, and particularly if you're over 50, sign up for my newsletter and connect with me. There's lots of learnings you can have on a experience like this, and it's very easy for them to stay on the Camino, but if you really want them to stick, then we can have a chat, have a coaching session, have a discovery call if you're not quite sure about that, to find out exactly how you can make the most of any self-learnings and self-development that you do while on the walk. So connect via the link below, and I look forward to having a talk and finding out how you can really make this the best experience it can be for you. One of the ways to connect with people on the Camino de Santiago, and the phrase that you will hear everywhere, is Buen Camino. Buen Camino. And on the Camino, Buen Camino, when you say it to someone, means all sorts of things. It can mean hello, goodbye, good luck, see you in Santiago. I know I'm in pain too. Yes, we're exhausted as well. It means all sorts of things, and it doesn't actually matter what language you speak and where you're from. Everybody understands what it means when you say Buen Camino to them. To say good morning first thing, and to say we're nearly there at the end of the day. So if you learn nothing else, and use no other phrase in another language while you're on the walk, definitely take your Buen Caminos with you. Just for you. Buen Camino. Gracias. One thing that springs to mind as I'm negotiating a very muddy path in the Chilterns, which thankfully certainly I didn't experience much on the Camino, is that there is actually no such thing, in my opinion, of an easy day on the Camino de Santiago. The days that I thought, oh, we're not actually walking that far, it's only 16 kilometres, then becomes 18 or 19 kilometres. It might be that you wake up and you're just not feeling it that day. It might be that your bag feels a bit bad. It might be that the weather's not great, and we had quite a lot of rain. We didn't have brilliant weather when we did it at the end of April. There are all sorts of reasons, or what's going on in your head, the things you're processing emotionally, can make any day a hard day. So I think that's a good one for your expectations, is take each day as it comes. Take each day and each route one step at a time, and it's amazing what you can achieve. But never ever think it's going to be easy. If you're doing the walk to commemorate someone or something that's happened in your life, then one thing I took from it is to take a memento. So a stone with their name painted on it. We saw shoes left at various points, and along the way there are certain kind of shrines, I guess, that people have left trinkets and memories on. They're actually quite special when you come across them. So if you're doing the walk for someone or for a very personal reason, which most people are, then take something if you want to leave a memento. The most common, of course, is the cockle shell. And the way to recognise other pilgrims is they have a scallop or a cockle shell on their bags, or various other parts of them. My partner on the final day had it on his sporran, on his kilt. So there you go, you can put it anywhere. It's a way of identifying the pilgrims, and if you don't have one before you leave, then there's plenty of places to buy them en route. What I didn't find out till after I got home is my name's Cockle, Sue Cockle, and actually that comes from the identification of the pilgrims on the Camino de Santiago, which kind of made it feel particularly special. But yeah, attach it to your bag, wear it with pride, and use it as a way of solidarity with your fellow pilgrims. For the most part, the route is well marked. There are way markers along the way with the amount of kilometres you have left to go towards Santiago, and yellow arrows to tell you which direction you need to go. They're fantastic. Great way of counting down how you're doing. For example, the first one we saw was 96 kilometres, and I think the last one was about 2, and it really does make you feel like you're achieving something. But what I found is, particularly when I got into towns, whether it's just because there's more going on, there's more to be distracted by, I often lost my way a little bit. There were quite some times when fellow pilgrims would shout at us and tell us we'd gone the wrong way, if there were any around, or you just get that gut feeling. But the most useful people along the route were the locals, and they see people coming past all the time, and doing the Camino is a real leveler and a real way to communicate whether you speak the language or not. Everybody knows what you're doing, everybody knows where you're going, and they are more than willing to help you along the way. There was even one time when we were in one town and I had just something in my gut that was telling me we were going the wrong way, and then I heard psst, and a woman literally shouting out of her bedroom window in Spanish, which I didn't fully understand, but what I did understand is she was saying, we're going the wrong way, we need to retrace our steps and turn right, which we did. And there were numerous occasions where locals helped put us back on the track, and it was a great way to connect. But the other thing is that not everywhere has the very official way markers. Sometimes you might be looking out for a yellow arrow, which could be on a lamppost, it could be on the ground, it could be on a wall, it could be quite big, it could be actually quite tiny, to indicate the way, and those are the ones that are more challenging. So what I advise and what I used is there's an app that I used called Buen Camino. The Buen Camino app is a must for anyone walking any route on the Camino de Santiago. Not only does it have the route marked very clearly in with the yellow line, it also tells you all of the places that you're visiting along the way. It gives you options, it tells you what is in each of the different locations. So it could be that they tell you there's a cafe there, and on the Camino Portuguese, trust me, you will maybe need to know where they are. There aren't as many as there are on other routes. But also it gives a whole list of accommodation. You can find out where the municipal albergues are, as well as all sorts of other private accommodation too. It is also a huge benefit to get your passport your Compostela before you leave for your Camino. Makes life a lot easier, and we got like plastic pouches to put them in, which when it was raining were hugely beneficial too. So I will also include a link as to, certainly in the UK, where you can get your passport, so that you've got all of that sorted and ready for when you go on the walk. Finally, there's the day that you arrive in Santiago, and once again, despite having it waymarked for 100 kilometers, we couldn't find the cathedral. But when we eventually got there, it was a matter of huge relief. The spectacle of this beautiful building, and then kind of not really sure what to do next. So my top tips for when you finally get there is A, don't expect the big gates to be open, and you walk up in some kind of ceremonial thing into the cathedral. It's not quite like that. The gates were locked and shut when we got there, so we made the wrong assumption that the cathedral was shut. But we also didn't really know what to do. But of course, we finally remembered, go get our certificate. So you have your Compostela with all your stamps. If you're walking for 100 kilometers, you need to get 2 stamps every day, which you can get from hotels, churches, cafes, restaurants, all sorts of places have stamps. Sometimes it's a little shack en route. Some of them are beautifully and ornate and you really want. Others are actually quite basic. So if you're doing further than 100 kilometers, you need 1 stamp a day. If you're doing 100, you need 2 stamps a day. Some days that's really easy, others it can be more of a challenge. When you get to the cathedral at Santiago de Compostela, remember a number of things. 1, even if the gates are closed and it looks shut, it's not. There's another way round. Find the other entrance, do a circumference, and you will find the other entrance to go in and marvel at the beautiful church inside, or marvel at the amazing church outside, because it is stunning and you've walked a hell of a long way to get there. So enjoy, take photos, find your friends that you've made on the route, take photos of them, get them to take photos of you. You may want to just relax in the square and sit down. It might be raining, but enjoy that moment, and don't forget to go and get your certificate, which is from the Pilgrims office, which is not so easy to find, but if you're in the square with the cathedral behind you, then head towards the back right hand corner, down the hill, turn right, and you'll find it along there. You get a little tag. My advice is register the day before. Then they have all of your details and it's a lot easier to get in. So make sure you do that, and even if you register as a group, maybe register individually too. That's what I had to do. Enjoy a beer and enjoy a rest, because what you've done is phenomenal. No matter how far you've walked, no matter how long it's taken you, your achievement is phenomenal. Enjoy it. We celebrated with a beer or 2 once we got our certificate. And finally, every day, I think it's 3 times a day, in the cathedral itself they hold a Pilgrims Mass. And even if you're not religious, even if you are don't understand Spanish, it's actually still quite an eventful and quite a meaningful and spiritual thing to do, is to attend the Mass. So we actually did it the day after, because like I say, we thought the cathedral was shut. So we went and had a lovely look around the cathedral, took our time, went to see the shrine of St James. We did all of that, and then attended the Pilgrims Mass, which was a really special moment. So there's definitely one at 7:30 in the evening, which was the one I did, but I think there's one at 12:30 and maybe one earlier too. All of the accommodation in Santiago, and anyone you ask locally should be able to tell you when the masses are. Don't miss it. I hope you've enjoyed me sharing my journey on the Camino de Santiago and the Camino Portuguese. I hope you find it useful. If you have, then please give me a thumbs up. Sign up for my newsletter for loads of information, ideas, inspiration. And I put a new travel video out every Friday on who, where, why, what. So hit the bell for a notification, and thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere else in the world next time.